This thing is wild. It's one of the most perplexing ancient artifacts that I've seen. A very mysterious looking object for sure. All right, everyone, welcome back to the land of Kev. I'm your host and the author. My name is Jeffrey Drum. Thank you all so much for joining me again. All right, everyone, welcome back. And to all the new viewers, know this is not my normal home studio, so please bear with me on the lighting and the audio over the next month as we are still traveling until we return home to Egypt. Now today, I'm feeling extremely nostalgic for Japan, and we haven't done a Sunday site visit in a while, so in this episode, I will be presenting my hypothesis for the function of one of the most enigmatic megaliths on the entire planet, along with exclusive on-site investigation footage from two separate expeditions to this spectacular site, the pyramid and stonework at Sakafune Ishi. Ladies and gentlemen, as always, thank you all so much for the support. I think that's it for today's intro, so without further ado, let's get right to it. All right, everyone, here we go with tonight's episode. Now, just as a quick preview for what you are about to see, here are some of the internal and external components of the pyramid structure and underground spring that are integrated into the Turtle Stone pyramid system. And we were extremely fortunate to receive a massive amount of exclusive research and data regarding this site and structure from one of the local guides that you will see in the footage. And upon the face of the pyramid, and yes, it has been confirmed to be a man-made pyramid, lies one of the most mysterious and bewildering ancient artifacts that I have ever seen, known simply as the Sakafune Ishi, that you can see here in this diagram, showing the perplexing stone in its original state, which tragically has now been broken off on each side here and here. So now, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, I hope you enjoy Sunday Site Visit 82, Bizarre Megaliths of Ancient Japan, Part 3, The Pyramid of Turtle Stone, and the Sakafune Ishi. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. And on today's expedition, we're about to venture into this bamboo forest here. In search of a very unusual artifact. I won't spoil the surprise, but we have several of these coming up on today's expedition. And some things that I've been very excited to see since we started planning this trip. Also pretty stoked to get out here in this bamboo forest. Looks beautiful. Let's go. Okay. So the first one here, I wonder how close we'll be able to get to this thing. The other one's back in this forest over here. Looks like they have it pretty well gated off, but so it's this guy here. Which is piece of granite carved into the shape of a turtle. You can see here. And it's connected to a subterranean spring.
And quickly they did the excavation and discovered that it is related to the royal family in the 10 emperor family.
Okay, so the subterranean spring
そうそうそう
here
そう、下から水が湧いてきて
connected to the
こう
water
流れていってこちらへ行くと。
and flows down into the collection basin here.
でこれがずーっと向こうまで流れていって、今駐車場になってますけど、本当はずっと下までつながってた。それがもう長い間に土が埋まって堆積してた。
So what present day the car park we just parked the car?
Yep.
They had this trace all the way down.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you ask him if it is made of granite, the piece of stone?
ない発掘してないんです。これが駐車場です。
あそこの石は何の石なのかわかります？
わかります。花崗岩で、ちょっと長い
Granite,
名前
yeah, okay, yeah.
核戦石、黒雲母石
And this is pretty standard here in Japan that you're either looking at volcanic ash rock or some form of granite, whether it be dacite, andesite.
It's a type of granite that contains this.
Biotite. Okay.
Yeah, and all of the granite here contains this. It's
Okay.
quarried from about 3 kilometers
Okay.
from the site here.
通称はもう飛鳥石で通るんですよ。長い名前言いましたけど、そんなこと言わなくて、飛鳥石どれってこれです。
So with this is probably the least unusual artifact that we're going to see today. Obviously, it's just basically a stone basin in a spring water storage tank. It's unusual. The granite basin itself has a hole on the front and a hole on the back. So this thing is never really going to fill with water. You know, the basin itself doesn't look like it'll ever really fill up.
And the,
Yeah, go ahead.
the back part is made of sandstone.
Sandstone. Okay.
Yeah.
So this subterranean spring underneath here is delivering water through this channel into this first basin where it does collect, but then the water just flows through the turtle. Unless you were to plug up the hole in the back, this basin would never fill completely. It more just serves as a channel so that the water can flow through this piece of granite, which to me is pretty interesting considering what we know about granite and the properties of the stone with quartz and ultrasound. I wonder if that was the intention of this little artifact, was not for the collection of water. Again, there's water flowing through there right now, and I don't see how that basin would ever completely fill. So what was the purpose of this artifact? If it wasn't for collection, it's more for transmission of the water source through the piece of stone, which is pretty cool. But as I just said, this is the least interesting artifact that we're going to see today. Just wait until you see what's back in this forest.
通りなんですけど、それ
Okay,
何
so
に
the
使
little
ったのっていうのは、本当は実は分かってないんですが、これ。
just confirmed that they
これ
did
写真撮って
find
ください。はい。
a plug and a cap
where the basin could be plugged. And he's explaining that the conventional function of this system is for filtration, that as the water flows out from the subterranean spring, it goes through the channel into this first basin where all the sediments will settle at the bottom. The water then flows through. You can see here, well, you probably can't see, but I can see that the hole on the first basin is toward the top of the reservoir. So the sediments are going to settle to the bottom. The clean water then goes through the little hole down into the turtle basin, which could then be plugged on the end if they wanted to collect the water in that lower turtle-shaped tank, reservoir, basin, whatever you want to call it. I do still like the idea of the granite itself having a function as related to the operation of this little system. And he's saying how the water source here is connected to the, what was the name of that temple?
Kanzan Jinja.
Yeah, but we went there, right?
No, we haven't.
No? Okay.
If we want to go, we can go today.
There's a huge temple system that has this subterranean source of water, and they said that they've traced the source of this water to this other temple. Again, all of these sacred sites are connected, whether it be via these underground water sources, the telluric currents flowing through all these sites. There's links between these things that create an entire network and system. And again, they're just utilizing the water from that same sacred spring here, purifying it, perhaps inducing some ultrasonic vibrations within the water.
Wow.
All right, now check this out.
これとこっち見て
So the
ね
guy-
こっち見てください
Our little curator here is very excited to
途
share
中
all
で
this
むき出しが
information
置い
with
てる
us.
列がありますので
It's
ここ上がっ
saying
て
that
また見てくだ
The
さい
mountain behind us is actually an artificial pyramid. And these are sandstone blocks that they found in the mountain. This thing has been excavated, showing that what we're about to see here
これもそ
これが
うだね。
これが分かりやすい
is
で
an
す
artificial pyramid structure.
Very similar to what we saw
So,
yesterday. This,
and also Coromanta, this is the same thing. So Coromanta, the artificial pyramid.
青森の
It's
黒
the
マン
same
タ
thing.
山っていうね、日本のピラミッドって言われ
So
る
you
ところあ
can
るん
see
で
the
すけど、
tiers
そ
here
こも同じような
and the casing
そう
stones.
ですね
So this is very similar to Mount Coromanta, which at this point you've already seen that Sunday site visit, and you can also see here kind of these tiers
ですので
here,
下の方は
which is also very similar to the
半地っていうんですけど土固めて作った
circular stepped
この石で
kofun that we saw yesterday.
これまあ残ってるんですか、上の方で見れて
いや見えてますここにあそうなんだここ登っていただいて
So now I'm even more excited to get
見に行くでしょでその途中に
into this forest to investigate this next megalith.
これがねこれ写真撮ってください
And these are much, much older
全部これでできてるんです
than they think they are. So he's saying this is dated back from like the 6th century. But that was just the first time that this stone was mentioned, this stone configuration here. Just the first time that it was mentioned in the historical record. So they don't really know when this actually
And then the casing is sandstone.
was created.
Yeah. ピラミッドってそうなんですよ。
I'd love to get a drink of some of that water.
このケーシングって呼ばれるね、その外側の枠のところはサンストーン。
But that's really, really cool. Again, the casing stone. You can see the stepped tiers, the casing
Sandstone.
Yep.
And we can see that on the way. Go
on
to
the way
next
up.
side.
Okay, cool.
これがそうです
So excited.
Yeah, it's really, really, really exciting stuff.
I heard pyramid.
Pyramid. Yeah. One of my favorite expeditions was Coromanta thus far.
わかりやすいですできてよかったです
There
こ
we
れ
go.
がそうです
There's more of.
びっくりするでしょこんな工事をしたんですそれが日本書紀に書いてある
斉明天皇だって7世紀とかですか？
そうそう。636年にね。
And this guy seems super excited to share this data with us, which we're more than happy to receive it. Man, I love bamboo. So we're actually visiting several different very weird, mysterious megalithic sites today, and I think I'll group all of these just in one episode so you can see all these crazy things that we're about to take a look at. Again, they have no idea what these things are for. This one's pretty straightforward, but these other two, they are definitely perplexing with no conclusive explanation for their function or creation. So stay tuned. And so back to the geology. The sandstone, this is the first time that we've heard sandstone mentioned in terms of the construction. He said it's not local, it's from a quarry that's pretty far away from here. So now we're seeing sandstone integrated into some of these constructions. Mostly everything thus far has been granite and volcanic ash rock, like the Oyu stone quarry.
And this transport of the sandstone
Yeah.
from the north of here is on the record.
Yeah,
And
on the river, on boats.
They created the river just to transport this.
Yeah, so he's saying that this river transport system, it's an artificially created river that was excavated to transport these blocks from the quarry. So that's really cool. He was also mentioning how the lower courses of this structure were granite, which is pretty reminiscent of what we see with some of the Egyptian pyramids, specifically the central pyramid and the final pyramid on the Giza Plateau, with the lower courses being made of granite and the upper courses being made of limestone. Here they're using sandstone instead of limestone. So this has been pretty cool. A lot of things that I didn't expect thus far. So this one, to review, pretty simple. Underground spring, purification, and collection basin. But these other two, well, just wait until you see it. Alright, so the guy has been further presenting more information in regard to the excavations. This site was discovered in 2000, so it's a relatively new discovery. They found remnants of the artificial river. They discovered this, began excavations here on this artificial pyramid mountain. So the more that we discuss this particular site, the more I'm considering the possibility that when this thing was originally constructed, it probably wasn't just water flowing out of this thing. So again, if this is an artificial pyramid mound, that I'm guessing they may one day find chambers inside of here. I wonder if this subterranean spring source is actually connected into something inside of the pyramid mountain itself, which would make this not a collection bowl for just spring water, but perhaps for something else. I keep thinking more about ferrous sulfate, because we just saw another one of these passage chamber structures yesterday that has the exact same configuration as the passage chamber mounds that I've been investigating in the UK and Ireland. But this may not just be a spring water collection bowl, it may actually be a chemical collection bowl that's connected to a chamber system, chemical reaction vessel embedded within this artificial pyramid mound. He was also talking about the labor effort. You know, approximately 100,000 people were involved in the construction of this pyramid mound. There was an artificial river carved out to transport the sandstone blocks to this location. So clearly whatever they were doing here was pretty important. And the ends have to justify the means. And to me, a simple spring water collection bowl isn't sufficient. However, if we are talking about industrial scale chemical reactions and producing chemicals that were then collected here, that's a different story. So the more I think about this, the deeper the mystery goes, and the more interesting this particular artifact and this system become.
The first one, right?
Yes, yes. So I just want to see this one more time, so you can see what I'm envisioning here. So this component is directly below this here, but I'm now imagining that this subterranean spring component is connected back into this pyramid mountain. Because why would you build this huge pyramid mountain if it was just for a natural spring that was coming up out of this location anyway? You don't need the additional infrastructure here if this was just tapping into a natural spring water source. And also the spring water source itself has to be coming from a higher elevation to be able to push it up and out through this. So we're talking about something that's coming from up here. The source itself is then pumping it out through here. All right, this is pretty cool. Really, really cool. So Lex was just commenting how much this system reminds her of the pyramids of Abu Sir and the red granite collection bowl. And you can see here, so this is the spring water source, this is the bowl, but they found additional conduits that lead. So if this is just for collection, it would stop here, they would plug it, but there's an additional conduit that now is buried beneath the car park. So all of these, this part, so here, so this is photos from the original excavation here. And this area was completely flat, and then they've built up all of this infrastructure around here. They were going to put a road in through here, and they stumbled across this thing. So you can see that there's additional channels and infrastructure that, so again, it's not just a collection bowl. It's connected into a distribution system. Very similar to what we see at the pyramid of Nayusere and the pyramids of Sahure in Abu Sir. She also said how much this thing looks like, you know, again with the adornments and the size, the bowls at Abu Ghurab. So, what originally appeared to just be a simple spring water collection bowl has now evolved into something far more complex and unexpected. Really, really cool. And please tell him thank you so much. Arigato gozaimasu. Thank you so much. This is awesome. Very, very cool. Yeah. And now you got to take a look at this. So this is what it looked like originally before it's like a baseball field or a soccer field before the excavations. And they were going to put a road through here, and now they found this and this. The artificial pyramid mountain and this conduit collection, transmission, you know, various functions were most likely involved in this system underneath this. That is crazy. Really, really cool. All right, so as has happened numerous times during this expedition, Teru begins explaining my work to these local Japanese people, and they immediately light up because there's so many connections between their kanji, their ancient spiritual beliefs, the shide, all of these lightning symbols, the white horses, and it really clicks to them specifically in regard to fertilizer, etc. So he was explaining to the curator here about the theory, and I heard him talking about the word lightning, which I can immediately hear in Japanese now. So here, thunder and lightning are kind of synonymous, and they're used in the same word, kaminari, which technically the word kaminari means thunder, but they use them interchangeably here to also mean lightning, because you can't have one without the other. And he said, the curator lit up. He said, oh, right near here, there's an artificial mound known as Kaminari Hill or Thunder Hill, Lightning Hill. Of course there is. You know, just like Silbury Hill and all of these other structures around the UK, they're all connected. They're all related to cumulonimbus, thunderstorm clouds, and lightning. So it's been pretty cool to see the response of actual Japanese people to my investigations of their ancient structures, specifically regarding the symbolism, the interpretation of kanji, which all connect thunder, rain, fertilization, and agricultural fields and crops. They're all connected within this kanji system, so it really makes sense to them hearing this interpretation that this ancient civilization was building structures to create cumulonimbus, thunderstorm clouds, and lightning events, which then produced atmospheric chemical reactions that generate nitrate fertilizers that are brought down in the rain to fertilize the crops, and how those lightning storm events further stimulated additional telluric currents within the earth, which facilitated the production of more thunderstorm and lightning events. Again, this cyclical Ouroboros system of the recirculation of electric current from the earth into the atmosphere and back down. Okay, so now we'll go into the bamboo forest. The story continues to get more interesting. So the curator was very enthusiastic about my hypothesis, and he was explaining how, okay, this Thunder Hill is not too far from this turtle stonework. And he explained that there is a Shinto shrine in conjunction with this Thunder Hill that was called, again, so they use the word thunder and lightning interchangeably. So when I say thunder, it could be thunder and lightning. Again, these two things, you can't have one without the other. So Thunder Hill or Lightning Hill is also connected to this Shinto temple that's known as Thunder Avenue or Lightning Avenue. And this Lightning Avenue is said to be the tail of the dragon. And the head of the dragon is located at Mount Miwa, where we visited yesterday. I didn't record anything there because it was just a big Shinto shrine, and we didn't have this knowledge at the time. So you have the head of the dragon at Mount Miwa, Thunder or Lightning Hill in the middle, and the tail end going to the Shinto shrine at Thunder Avenue, the tail of the dragon. Literally a serpent temple complex, the exact same as we have with Avebury, with the center of the serpent temple complex being the telluric current concentration structure that attracts the lightning, and then the distribution going into the tail end and the head end. It's literally the exact same thing with the structure he just described here in Japan. So the research that I have to do following up this expedition just continues to pile up, and it's going to be a lot of work, but I am very excited about where all of this is going.
It was 25 centimeter higher on this
28.5
end.
センチ上げると
And they have
こう
the
なって
little
水
smaller
がこう
stone
流れ
to
てどっかに
rise
入る
them.
Okay. So, a little preview of what we're about to see. Check this out. And unfortunately, the stone has now cracked. And we'll only be able to see this center part here. So when you see it, keep in mind that there was originally this configuration over here
YouTube もらうな
and this part over here.
叩いて
But this
あ、ぜひぜひ。
is extremely unusual. And I can't wait to see this thing. And he said that originally this end of it was tilted up. Like, yeah, he's showing us the inclination. Yeah, yeah. Well, I can't read that. Yeah, but 28.5 centimeters raised this way. So this is the bottom, and this is the top here. So it was slanted up this way. So that's important for me to remember when I try to decipher the function of this thing.
でまたここへ戻るんです戻ってこれ写真でご覧
And he has a whole presentation here on this stone as well.
スタートがここです、でくるくる回った水は全部ここへ一回集まるんです、一
So
回回
water
って
starts from
で
here.
ここ
and then-
回るわけね、そうすると水っていうのは循環しないと、こう水回らへんでしょ、で私右利きですか
So
ら
he keeps
右で
using the word mizu, which is
ここ
water.
水入れるわけ、
So I know
水だ
he's
けでは
talking
わから
about
ないんで、これ
this thing being related to
笹
water.
舟をここへ浮かばすの、そのぐらいの幅です。そうすると笹舟がどこ行くかによって水の流れ分かるでしょ、でここへ入ったから西明さんは
We shall see.
自分の息子中野大江とか物
あ
に
そこの占いをしてたの。
してそうこうやろってで後で白末の戦いで負けますけどね、そこへ一族老頭全部連れて行ったのは、これでやったんやと思う。
Okay. He thinks that these were a kind of fortune-telling system used by the emperor.
Okay.
The system is こっちで説明してください。こっちで説明すると、ここに笹を入れるの。
そう
そう。
で水がこう流れて一回くるくるっと回ってトンと当たってどっかに入るわけです、
Depending on where the water
Yeah,
goes,
yeah.
pour the water
Yeah,
in here.
but
And
yeah, but water's running right like this, and then the emperor maybe put the leaves here and see where the leaves ends. You know.
Right, in the flowing water
Yeah,
system.
yeah,
And depending on which bowl it
Yeah,
goes
yeah.
into, that would predict which fortune.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
で
Interesting.
これが最後に水が全部ここへ溜まって水を循環さすわけ、ひしゃくです
So
くって
the water ends here, and then you by
ここから
hand,
スタートしてくるくる
yeah,
回
with
る
the dipper, you sort of
だから笹
bring
舟
it
は
back
流れ
to
る
the
でしょ、
top, and
置いと
then
ったって流れる
Interesting.
から、
Okay.
それ
Cool.
は現物見て、私の話が嘘か本当かをご自身で判断して
This guy.
私が言うたって言ったらダメだ。
Awesome.
あやっぱり
Very,
そう
very
やってこと
cool.
で
And we're very, very lucky to have this dude here today. Because this has been a huge revelation. Cool.
面白いね。
Let's go see it.
で日本人だけわかるんですけど、昔お酒のことをささっと読んだんです。辞書を調べていただいた。
Again, I think this is my 5th pan into the bamboo forest. All right, we're getting there. Beautiful. Okay. So the first stop here, this is showing some of the excavated sandstone casing blocks or interior infrastructure of this artificial pyramid mound. I wouldn't say this is quite a mountain, but it's definitely an artificial pyramid type structure. All right. So now I'm gonna break away for a sec. And I really like the curator's idea about the utilization of this stone for divination. I think that's a really cool concept. Alright, I'm gonna have to wait. I didn't expect to have a big tour group out here, but alright, here we go. So this thing is crazy looking. And I'll give you an overhead shot. Check this out. So you got to remember that this side here and this side here were split off, and unfortunately this was done intentionally. This stone was broken and they were quarrying this piece of stone for utilization in another construction. You can see here that there's quarry marks. So like this, these holes are quarry marks where they had split this piece of stone off. So remember that this isn't the original configuration of this stone, and it was originally tilted up in this direction, where this end was higher than this end. And the curator was explaining his idea about how water from this little basin here was scooped out and poured down into here, and that leaves floating in the water would end up in one of these little circular holes. Now I like that idea, but looking at the volume of water that you could put in here compared to the volume of water that would be required to fill this whole thing, there's something not adding up about that to me. There's not enough water in this little area here, even if this was completely filled, to fill all of the channels in this stone artifact. So again, he was saying that the water would fill this entire system, and that leaves floating, you know, again, wherever the leaves went is whatever fortune was predicted. Again, divination, fortune telling. I like that idea, but from a functional perspective, I don't see that as the case. There's not enough volume of water in that little reservoir to fill any of this. So what the hell is this thing? I was hoping that that was one less piece of research that I would have to do, one less mystery I would have to decipher from this trip. If I agreed with that hypothesis, I think it's a cool idea, but looking at this thing, I don't see that as the case. So what the hell is this thing? So there you can see Lex for a size comparison of this object. And remember, it was originally up this way, and it's since settled back down. He was saying that it was raised up, 26 centimeters or whatever it said on that sheet. But this is not the craziest megalithic artifact that we're going to see today. This is just number 2, and things will be ramping up as we get to the next site. I don't have an opinion on the function of this quite yet, as this is the first time I've seen it in person. But sorry, I'm getting eaten by mosquitoes. This does appear to be a reservoir of sorts here. I'll have to look back at the video and of the pictures of the original configuration to really dive into this thing. And the Sakafune Ishi, Sakafune Ishi, Sakafune. So the name of this stone is the Sakafune Ishi, Sakafune Ishi, which the literal translation of this has to do with, it's like the sake ship, the sake ship stone. But he was saying how the translation of bamboo leaves may have evolved into sake. It's a very similar word. So it may mean the bamboo leaf ship stone. But the word fune is ship, like a vessel, like a boat or a craft of some sort. So, as always, I do believe that there is some sort of esoteric information encoded in the names of these things. So this is something that's going to require some further in-depth investigation.
All right, everyone. Now, what you are about to see is a short clip from the ongoing Land of Chem in the Lab experiment series featured on the members-only Alchemist tier. In this particular experiment, we are testing my hypothesis on the function of the Sphinx step-down voltage transformer system. And as you are about to see, it works. So if you want to help support the channel and get access to this type of exclusive research content, check out the members-only Alchemist tier, link in the video description below. Check this out.
See, there it goes.
And then maybe move it a little closer, the electrode a little closer, because I think that's what actually caused the discharge between the two. There we go. Yeah, look at that. Look at that. Holy shit.
Holy crap. I was not expecting it to do that.
Yes.
Oh, baby.
Yes.
Look at that. Holy crap. Yes, that's it. That's what we were going for. That's holy shit.
Yes, dude. Holy shit.
This stone, known as the Sakafune Ishi, is located in the Asuka village of Nara Prefecture in Japan, not too far from where my wife Alexa and I have been living for the past 3 months. And this artifact is incorporated into an industrial pyramid structure site that was first presented here on the channel back in Sunday Site Visit 82, Bizarre Megaliths of Ancient Japan Part 3, where I revealed some spectacular archaeological research that was given to us by the guide at the site, presenting details about the man-made pyramid facility that integrates a variety of different stone components into its operation. And in this week's Sunday Site Visit, I will debut the footage from our secondary investigation of the structure so you can see the evidence for everything that I am about to discuss today up close in person. And if you haven't seen this episode yet, I will put a link in the video description below. It is a fantastic on-site expedition. So, during my first visit to this site, I began to develop the idea that the Sakafune Ishi megalith was a type of chemical mixing and distribution system, essentially a control switch mechanism that was utilized to manage the allocation of specific chemical solutions being distributed into different areas of this industrial pyramid facility. And in just a moment, I'm going to show you exactly how this system works. But first, after leaving this profoundly intense and awakening on-site expedition in Nara, I was determined to see if I could find any academic research regarding the function of this stone component. And after some laborious searching, I finally stumbled upon this, a reprint from a symposium discussing the function of the Sakafune Ishi by Japanese researchers Yui Murakama from the Graduate School of Science and Engineering at Tokyo University, along with Yoshihiro Kubota and Osamu Mochizuki, both faculty of Science and Engineering at Tokyo University, entitled "On the Consideration about the Possibility that the Sakafune Ishi was a fluidics device," with fluidics being a fascinating discipline focused on the study and technique of using small interacting flows and fluid jets for functions usually performed by electronic devices, with these fluidic devices defined as a device such as an amplifier or control that depends for operation on pressures and flows of a fluid in perfectly shaped channels. And as soon as I began translating this paper, I knew I had struck gold, as a fluidic control switch mechanism is exactly what I was thinking. However, what they present in these experiments and my hypothesis about the function of the Sakafune Ishi are quite different. So first, let's start with the parameters of their research to establish a basis for comparison, because theirs is an exceptional foundation and the overall direction of their ideas is definitely on the right track. And I will quote a few things here directly from the introduction regarding the speculations about the function of this megalithic artifact and some of the history of the Asuka area. Starting here, quote, "There is a stone structure called Sakafune Ishi on the hillside in Asuka village in Nara prefecture. It is a strangely shaped stone, thought to have been built in the Asuka period, and it is said to be related to a person named Empress Saimei. It is famous as a mysterious stone, and there are various theories about its use. For example, one theory is that it was a facility for extracting cinnabar, which is a raw material for vermilion pigment and mercury. Another theory is that it was a facility for extracting sake by pouring cloudy sake into the upper depression and letting it flow downward. In addition, mystery writer Matsumoto has proposed a theory that it was a facility for producing the anesthetic hamao grass juice used in rituals by Zoroastrians who were popular in Persia. The name of the stone is said to have been given the name Sakafune Ishi, based on the theory that it was used to obtain sake. However, these theories are not conclusive, and its actual use has not yet been clarified. Therefore, we have considered the function of Sakafune Ishi by focusing on the background of the era in which it was made, the surrounding environment, and the shape of the stone." End quote. Now, some historical background about the Asuka area during this time period, being known for large-scale civil engineering works that involved mobilizing about 30,000 people to dig the Raku River, a river that is actually a man-made canal that is about 12 kilometers in a straight line, that utilized almost 70,000 people in 200 boats to transport stones. And it was known as the, quote, Madman's Canal, a demonstration of the, quote, extraordinary interest in civil engineering works during this time period. Now, a bit more information describing the various hypotheses regarding the function of the Sakafune Ishi. This coming from the Kansai Cultural website, stating here, "The carvings in the stone have varying depth, which suggest that they were designed to allow for draining and skimming of liquids. The exact purpose of the stone is unknown, but there are a number of theories as to how it may have been used. The name Sakafune Ishi comes from the theory that it is a sake boat stone, or a boat-sized stone used to brew sake. Other theories are that the stone was used to pan for gold dust, to process cinnabar, a red dye from a type of mercury ore, to press or extract plant oil, or that it was used as some sort of ceremonial stage for singers. There is no clear evidence for any of this speculation." End quote. So here you can see an image from our secondary visit to the site showing what remains today of the Sakafune Ishi artifact, with this side here and this side here being intentionally broken off in antiquity. So what is left today is not the full size, shape, or configuration of the original component, as you will see in just a moment. Now, on to the conjecture that it was used for mercury extraction from cinnabar. As much as I like this idea, the configuration of the stone itself does not fit in any way with the most commonly used method for mercury extraction, which is a pyrometallurgical approach, meaning that it involves fire, in conjunction with distillation and condensation. So here, you can see an alchemical apparatus that was used for this type of pyrometallurgical extraction and distillation of mercury. And here, an early Industrial Revolution era device that had the exact same application. Here, an alchemical workshop where the mercury ore is being fed into the kiln, and the mercury distillation and condensation vessels here, with the basic operation involving 3 steps. First, the cinnabar mercury ore being roasted in a kiln or furnace here, which releases mercury vapor, which is then cooled and condenses out as liquid mercury metal. And nothing about this pyrometallurgical process is compatible with the Sakafune Ishi stone or any of the other components at this industrial pyramid structure facility. And none of the research has presented any step-by-step mechanisms of operation describing how this mercury extraction could work using this stone component, other than just stating that it was somehow used for processing cinnabar. So, the hypothesis that the Sakafune Ishi is connected to the pyrometallurgical approach to cinnabar mercury extraction absolutely does not fit. However, at the end of the video, I will show you how it may have been used for a hydrometallurgical process, one that does not involve fire, but rather chemicals. So first, let's continue with the research from this Japanese team to see what they discovered in their experimental design.
All right, and just a quick reminder that if you want to get to know me and my beautiful wife Alexa a bit better, I highly recommend subscribing to Let's Go with Lex and G so you can join us on our adventures across the world with fantastic content like food reviews from our 2023 research expedition to England and Ireland, pizza reviews like this episode that was filmed right after I finished recording the epic Danny Jones podcast appearance. You don't want to miss this one. It was amazing. A full tour of the new Grand Egyptian Museum, nightlife along the Nile River in Egypt, and all of our most recent content from Japan, including Tokyo Adventures, Gyoza in Harajuku, the spectacular Kombini Sando battle, and a whole lot more, including ancient temples and other structures not specifically related to physics and chemistry technology. So come join us on Let's Go with Lex and G. I'll put a link in the video description below, and I hope to see you all there.
All right, now I will resume quoting here, stating, quote, "There are many ruins in the Asuka village that are believed to have been built by this Empress Saimei, and the Sakafune stone is thought to have been built as a part of these construction works. Some of the ruins incorporate cutting-edge Tang Dynasty technology, such as water pumping techniques, and various mechanisms have been incorporated," end quote. They then go on to describe several other stone mechanisms found in the Asuka area that utilize fluid dynamics. Now, here, resume quoting, "As seen above, many ruins that used water have been found in the Asuka village. Let's take a look at the area around Sakafune Ishi. Just below the hill where Sakafune Ishi currently stands, a turtle-shaped stone structure, a stone tank called an oval-shaped stone structure, and a spring water facility have been discovered. It has become clear that these combined form a water-conducting facility. As for the turtle-shaped stone structure, it is speculated that it had an organic shell cover at the time, as the shape of a turtle closely resembles that of a turtle depicted in one of the oldest Japanese embroidery scrolls. Based on the distance and orientation of the locations of the stone and the Sakafune Ishi, it is possible that this water-conducting facility and the Sakafune Ishi were related. It is known that the hill on which the stone stands was artificially constructed, and furthermore, a clay pipe and stone trough for drawing water to the location of Sakafune Ishi have been discovered at a slightly higher point 40 meters east of the stone. In addition, 16 water-conducting stones called Kurama Ishi have been discovered nearby. The Kurama Ishi are stones with long, narrow grooves carved into them that resemble the tracks of a cart. From this, it is thought that Sakafune Ishi was a facility that utilized water and was used in conjunction with a water conveyance facility. The layout of these ruins has been considered and summarized in the diagram shown in Figure 4. And here you can see a zoomed in image of Figure 4 displaying how they envision the integration of the Sakafune Ishi and the Kurama Ishi into this spring water facility at the bottom of the man-made pyramid hill. Now, on to their proposal. I will resume quoting here. Focusing on the shape made up of these dents and grooves, it can be seen as a flip-flop circuit for a fluid element. A fluid element is an element that uses fluids such as water or air to control the flow without using electricity. End quote. And here is a diagram that was presented to us by the guide at the site during our first visit, showing the configuration of this spring water facility and the turtle-shaped stonework at the base of this artificial man-made pyramid structure. Very reminiscent of the Egyptian version of a similar facility that features this red quartzite conduit and red quartzite collection bowl system at the pyramid of Niuserre in Abu Sir. Now, back to their research. And I will resume quoting again here, stating, in this study, a scale model of the Sakafune Ishi was created and used in experiments to investigate what functions it had and how it was used, end quote. Now, I'm not going to go into great depth describing their research, as unfortunately, there are a few fundamental issues with the design. First, the model itself that you can see here is incorrect. These two sides, this side here and this side here, are not symmetrical, or rather, were not symmetrical originally. Second, they are proposing that this basin here at A is the inlet. However, in fact, this stone was originally angled downward, with F being elevated higher than A. So the inlet is not at A, it is at F, and the whole system flows downward in this direction. So these two inaccuracies compromise the rest of their experimental design. And although the premise of their research is absolutely spot on, the addition of these tubes and the various configurations just intuitively is not correct, in my opinion. The basins and the conduits that connect them were carved intentionally, and they are designed to function as is. They do not require circumvention by these artificially integrated tube systems that is proposed in this paper. And I do not think the addition of these tubes connecting the various basins is necessary or accurate. And as I just mentioned, they have the inlet and the outlet reversed. So, the results of their experiments showing various flow rates that result from the different connections of these tubes, although extremely interesting and absolutely on the right track, has inherent design issues. But I do agree with their conclusion as stated here. Quote, the Sakafune Ishi in Asuka Village has grooves that appear to have been carved artificially. These can be seen as fluidic flip-flop circuits. In this study, we conducted model experiments to investigate the flow of water through the Sakafune Ishi and found that the connection pattern of the feedback ports changes the way the water flows out. We also confirmed that the output method changes depending on the combination of the feedback ports. So now, let's go back to my stated hypothesis that I mentioned at the beginning of the episode, that the Sakafune Ishi is a type of chemical mixing and distribution system, essentially a control switch mechanism that was utilized to manage the allocation of specific chemicals being distributed into different areas of this industrial pyramid facility. And I will now show you step by step exactly how this thing works. All right, everyone, I hope you're enjoying the video. And if you want to help support the channel, you can pick up a copy of the book and grab some merch at thelandofchem.com. The second edition Egyptian blue version is now back in stock. Same text as the first edition, just a new color design and a brand new merch drop. Inazuma Kagaku, lightning, chemistry. Absolutely gorgeous kanji calligraphy designed by my Japanese tattoo artist Shin at Funky Guns in Kobe, and all of your favorites, including stickers. Links to everything in the video description below. Thank you all so much for the support. Now, back to the video. All right, now. So here we have the complete diagram of the original intact configuration. And you can see that these two sides here and here are not symmetrical. And this diagram also shows the outlet channels leading off of the tertiary basins that were not included in the Japanese researchers' model, with the inlet being up here at the top and a series of basins that could function as is, or these indentations may have been housings for vessels or containers that were connected by a series of conduits or pipes. And I tend to lean toward the idea that there were physical vessels and pipes housed in these carved out depressions. And this pipe network extended out off of the control switch, delivering these chemical solutions into various areas of the facility as shown here. Now, at the outlet of each vessel or basin, there was a plug or valve, and this type of component was also discovered during the archaeological excavations of the turtle stonework at the base of the pyramid structure, which also had a plug release valve at the outlet. And these valves are now shown here in purple at the outlet of each vessel basin. So the main inlet, shown here at the top in green, leads down into the primary vessel that has two outlets, one here and one here. This one sloping downward toward this single basin, and at the bottom sloping downward into the bottom basin that also has two outlets. This one sloping downward toward the dual basin side, and this one sloping downward toward the triple basin side. So, the first important detail to mention is that the slope of the different sections of the stone dictate the movement of the fluids into these three distinct areas of the control switch mechanism. So now, let's turn this thing on and run the system. Now, to begin, let's say in this example that what is being introduced is just water flowing into the control switch down in this direction, and it will fill the primary vessel here. Now, let's say I want to activate the single side of the switch over here that distributes water down in this direction. Just open the valve and the water will flow down in this direction, filling the single basin. And the outlet valve can also be opened to drain the water out of the system, sending a precise amount of water out in this direction toward a specified area of the facility that is connected into this outlet pipe. Okay, now let's say that instead of water, we want to add some sort of chemical into the mixture, either a solid powder or liquid chemical to create an aqueous solution. Now we just open the vessel, add the chemical into the basin, open the valve, and your aqueous mixture chemical solution is distributed into the connected area of the facility out in this direction. Okay, now let's say that I want to activate the lower section of the control switch. We open this valve here, and the water will flow down in this direction to the lowest vessel. Okay, now let's activate the triple side of the switch here. Just open the valve, and the water will flow down in this direction, filling the triple basins. Okay, now open these valves, and the water is sent into the 3 areas of the facility that are connected into these pipes. Or, once again, we could mix a chemical into the solution within these triple vessels. Now, open the valves and send the aqueous solution to those 3 same areas. Okay, now let's activate the dual side of the control switch. Just open this valve. The water will flow down the slope in this direction, filling the dual vessels. Now open these valves, and the water is distributed to yet another area of this industrial facility. Or, once again, we can use the vessels to mix in various chemicals to create an aqueous solution. Then open the valves and send our chemical to these 2 areas of the facility. And I do think that these 3 sections of the control switch, 1, 2, and 3, are completely isolated for a reason, and that whatever was being used in the single, double, and triple basins was different in each section and always the same within each section during each production run. Each chemical being intended for specific operations that were occurring within various sections of this industrial pyramid facility. Okay, now let's run the entire switch system simultaneously by opening all of the outlet valves, which will send the water down the slope toward each of the 3 sections. Now we open all of those respective outlet valves, and the water is sent to the 6 stations of the facility. Or, once again, we use this as a chemical mix and distribution control switch by mixing in our various elements to create aqueous solutions in each of the 3 areas. Now, open those valves, and our mixtures are sent to the 6 areas of the facility simultaneously, with this area up here of the facility focusing on a process that utilizes chemical A. This area here on a part of the facility that processes chemical B, and these 3 sections concentrating on chemical C. And the slope of the stone itself dictates that all of these 3 sections are separate and unique. Okay, now, as I was preparing the slides, I was contemplating the idea of these same mechanisms of operation being applied to a hydrometallurgical approach to metal ore extraction, one that does not involve fire like the pyrometallurgical processes, but rather chemicals to leach out metals from various ores. So let's see if this system can accomplish a metal ore extraction using the same procedure that I just described. So we fill each of our 3 areas with 3 different types of pulverized, powdered metal ore. And in this demonstration, I have iron ore here, cinnabar mercury ore over here, and gold ore over here. Like I just said, all 3 areas of the control switch having different mixtures, and always the same mixture being used in each section during every production run, being intended for distribution into specified areas of the facility. In this example, 1 area that was processing iron, 2 sections that were for processing mercury, and 3 stations for dealing with the gold. And let's run the system the exact same way that I just showed. Now, before I show this demonstration, I don't necessarily think this is how the system was used for metal ore extraction. I do think that it was used for chemical mixing and distribution, as I just showed. But I have a few objections to the idea of this hydrometallurgical metal extraction that I will cover once I run the demonstration. This is just for speculation about the potential application of the mechanisms of operation that I just described. So in this scenario, we will be starting with hydrochloric acid instead of water. And instead of metal pipes or vessels, you would really need glass, which is not ideal for industrial infrastructure. And now we'll run the system and begin to process our iron ore located over here. So we introduce the hydrochloric acid into the control switch primary vessel. Open the valve leading to the iron ore basin, and the hydrochloric acid will flow downward in this direction, leaching out the iron in this vessel. You can then open this release valve, and the aqueous solution containing the dissolved iron will flow out toward the iron process area of the complex. Okay, now let's run the lower section of the control switch. Open this outlet valve. The hydrochloric acid will flow downward in this direction, filling the secondary vessel. Add some nitric acid into the mixture to create aqua regia. You can see here. And open this valve here to send the mixture toward the gold extraction vessels. The nitric acid will leach out the gold. Open these valves and send your gold solution into the gold processing section of the facility. Okay, now let's do the mercury extraction. Same setup here with the aqua regia mixture in the lower basin. Open the valve here, sending the mixture down into the mercury section, dissolving the mercury. Open the valves and send it to the mercury processing stations. Now, just like before, we can run the entire system simultaneously with the hydrochloric acid here, the aqua regia solution here. We open all of the valves, distributing the acids out into the leach basins to dissolve the metals. Then we open all the valves and send it. Now, as I mentioned before, I have several issues with this system being used for metal ore extraction. For example, using glass pipes and vessels for the industrial infrastructure is not ideal. Also, the size of these basins is relatively small and not indicative of a large industrial scale metal extraction operation like what we see on the Giza Plateau. This scenario was just a demonstration of the capabilities of this mechanism using the same fluid dynamics that I have proposed were involved in its operation. So let's say that this was just a spring water facility that perhaps had agricultural applications. Well, it turns out that a 1:3:2 ratio of nitrogen to phosphorus to potassium-based fertilizer is ideal for flower growth. So perhaps they were mixing in nitrogen-based fertilizers over here, phosphorus-based fertilizers over here, and potassium fertilizers over here that were later all incorporated down the line within this pyramid facility. And old Empress Saimei was using this whole system to fertilize her flower garden. Regardless of how it was used, for metal ore extraction, for fertilizers, or some other application involving any variety of chemicals, the mechanisms of operation will always be the same, with the dynamics built into the stone itself that I have just presented. And remember from our first expedition to investigate the site that the Sakafune Ishi pyramid structure with its various components, including the Sakafune Ishi, are just one part of a massive dragon temple complex that includes the head of the dragon near Mount Miwa and an immensely powerful structure that we explored in Sunday Site Visit 93, known as Thunder Hill. So what we are looking at here in Asuka, Japan, is once again an immense lightning-powered chemical manufacturing and distribution industrial complex. All right, now, just for fun, let's run this whole system once again, start to finish with no interruptions. Let's bring this thing to life. Hell yeah. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. The function of the Sakafune Ishi as a chemical mixing and distribution system, a control switch mechanism that was utilized to manage the allocation of specific chemical solutions being distributed into different areas of this industrial pyramid facility.
It must be just around here, no? What do you think this was? What do you think this was?
All right, everyone.
We are looking at like this.
Welcome back. And we have returned to a site that I have been very eager to investigate after our last Japan research expedition. Ooh, and it looks like there's some guys working down in this pit today, cleaning out the system. All right, so I won't spoil the surprise quite yet. But in the previous research episode, I presented my hypothesis on the function of the Sakafune Ishi stonework. So today we have returned to examine this component in person. And as presented, there is some research that connects 4 distinct components of this fluid distribution network, and in my opinion, a chemical manufacturing system. So the first component is the tiered pyramid mountain itself. Second, we have the Sakafune Ishi mixing and distribution control system component. And we'll talk a little bit more about that hypothesis when we get to the stonework itself. Third, we have a fluid distribution channel. And fourth, we have the subterranean tank system and the termination of the entire complex here in the turtle stonework, which this also continues further. And I'll show, here we go.
You guys saw this. It's my lovely wife Alexa from Ancient Odysseys.
Konnichiwa. Take a look at this.
Okay, so here you can see at the top is the termination and turtle stonework collection bowl that we're looking at right here. Very reminiscent to the exact same type of system that was installed at the Pyramid of Niuserre in Abu Sir, with the red quartzite conduit and collection bowl network. And you can see down here that the system continues further. So this is the extent of the excavation that you can see here. But all of this has been reburied. There's more of this conduit that leads in this direction that has now been completely reburied under the modern parking lot. So today we're gonna head into the bamboo forest that is now growing out of the top of this pyramid mountain. We will see if we can find any remnants of the Kurama Ishi, the stone conduit that was connected into the Sakafune Ishi fluid mixing and distribution control component. Ohio. You guys ready?
Let's go.
Let's go.
I'm excited.
And our good friend Teru has rejoined us for this expedition. We just had a fantastic wild voyage across the Wakayama Prefecture. We visited the Grand Shrine in Mie, the Ise Grand Shrine. Really, really awesome stuff. And you can see all of that content either on Ancient Odysseys or our travel channel, Let's Go with Lex and G, both linked in the video description below. If you haven't already, please go subscribe to Ancient Odysseys and Let's Go with Lex and G so you can see all of the amazing content from the rest of our adventures that's not specifically related to ancient site research. Awesome food and travel stuff. All right, so now we're gonna go into the bamboo forest. We're gonna investigate the sort of archaeological area that shows that this mountain is an artificial pyramid mountain. They did some excavations, and there's a section of the excavation on the side of the hill that shows the, for lack of a better term, casing stones of this pyramid structure. Arigatou gozaimasu. Let's go. All right. Okay, so we just came from this area here. So here's the termination, the subterranean, let's call it storage chamber, the termination and collection bowl. And I think we confirmed last time that it was granite, correct? The turtle stonework was granite.
I think two kind of stone.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of them is.
Okay, and here is some of the exposed original masonry of this artificial pyramid mountain. So you can see here the tail end of the stone. And this stone would continue all back through this area. So this is a tiered, stepped pyramid structure. So now we're going to head up a bit further and check out this control component, a switching system. Now there's also reported to be another component here on the hillside. I don't know if that is still exposed. I think we're going to take a little walk through this area here to see if we can find it. All right, here it is, the Sakafune Ishi. And before I provide the formal on-site explanation, remember that this is not the whole piece. This side here was broken off. These channels continued out. So there was more to this component here that, in my opinion, was intentionally destroyed in the removal of what was housed in these basins and channels. Here you can see some coring marks where this thing was broken off. The rest of this edge here also continued out, and there were further pieces that came out of this system. This thing is wild. It's one of the most perplexing ancient artifacts that I've seen. A very mysterious looking object for sure. All right, so we're going to explore for a bit, and then I will resume here in just a moment and explain exactly how this thing worked. All right, so I was just searching through the bamboo forest area for the component that you can see here in between the Sakafune Ishi and the turtle stone collection bowl at the bottom, the Kurama Ishi, the conduit. And if you want to see all of the diagrams, go check out the previous research episode presenting all of this information. And the archaeological evidence suggests that the Sakafune Ishi stonework complex, including the pyramid, is part of a water distribution and utilization industrial facility of some sort. This area in Asuka is directly connected to ancient metalworking and industrial areas. So this originally looked like this. And of course I had to go back to my own episode here because this diagram, again, I'm having to look at it on my phone, is the only complete diagram that I have seen anywhere of the Sakafune Ishi. And you can see that on each side, again, go back and watch the previous episode if you want to see this diagram more clearly. You can see on each side of the stone, there were originally terminations that led out and off of this main component. So what you can see here is the initial part of this fluid switch and distribution system. Okay, so we have the inlet here, and originally this thing was tilted up, and it is most likely not in its original position. It was located somewhere at the top of the hill in conjunction with this turtle stone collection bowl and the Kurama Ishi conduit here at the top of the hill. And it's proposed that it was originally tilted up like this. So you have the inlet here. That flowed down into the central basin here. And I hypothesize, and I would propose, that there were vats or vessels or basins here where different chemicals could be introduced into mixtures at each point in this mixing and distribution system. And in these channels, there may have been pipes. Again, out of each one of these basins that you can see here, there was another channel leading out of this main system, which directly implies that something went in and then out in several different directions. And if there were valves installed here, like a simple valve that you could lift up and close, lift up and close. So again, imagine the water or fluid coming in here, fluid more accurately, aqueous solution of some sort of chemical flowing through a pipe, and there would have been a large container here, perhaps with an opening where additional either solid or liquid materials could have been introduced, and a valve closure here. So when you mix everything up in this basin, you open the valve and it flows into the next one. And by using this system of valves, you could open and close the system and control where the fluid went next. So you could have distribution of that into just one area by closing this valve, opening this valve, and opening this valve. The fluid would flow down into the primary basin down here. You could add another component into the mixture here, and it would go straight out of this channel. If you wanted it to go in this direction and in this direction, you open this valve and then it goes in here. So it's a switch to control the distribution into different areas of this entire complex. So my initial hypothesis and thoughts about the structure was that it had something to do with metal, molten metal. And I do think that whatever was installed in here, that these were most likely metal components, metal pipes and metal basins and vats, you know, with the little opening here, so you could put more components into the mixture, whether it be solid powdered particles that you could mix in, or fluid. So the tricky thing about molten metal is you got to keep it hot. And if you were to pour molten metal into this thing, it would solidify, and then it wouldn't continue flowing out of the system. I also considered the fact that this is perhaps a mold for molten metal. But given that we have a water mixing system down at the bottom of this complex, because again, this is a connected network of 4 distinct components. You have the pyramid structure itself, you have the fluid mixing and distribution system, you have the channel and the collection bowl. This entire system is not indicative of a, you know, metal mold fabrication site. It's all about fluid dynamics. So all of these interconnected components had something to do with this fluid. And again, what was going in here, you know, that's subject to interpretation and use your imagination. I do believe it has something to do with metalworking. Whatever fluids they were mixing up in here had something to do with the metalworking industrial complex in this area. I don't think there was metal in this. I don't think it's a metal mold. I do think that there were metal components, metal pipes that ran through this system. Again, a system of valve closures that would allow the controlled distribution of fluids to different areas of this network. And I would imagine the reason they broke this thing off was to pop the metal pieces out of here. It was intentionally destroyed in the removal of the metal components, very similar to what we see across the sites of Egypt. And now that this is my second time to see this thing in person, having explored the research that was presented in the previous episode, and again, seeing it for my second time, that seems like a fairly reasonable hypothesis. But it's a pretty weird looking system. And again, you have to imagine that here at the inlet there was probably there was something else connected into this. So we're only looking at 4 components: the distribution mixing switch, the collection bowl at the bottom, the distribution channel. These are 4 components that are now isolated from a much bigger interconnected network of functional pieces, because there would have been a whole piece that connected into here. What was it? Where is it? And again, there would have been a branching network that came off of this thing. The terminations of these channels went somewhere as well. So where did all that lead? This is one of those sites. Bring a damn GPR out here and find out what it is and what is buried beneath this structure. My wife Alexa also had an interesting observation that this may be a map of sorts to indicate the interconnected components of this system. Perhaps this is a map of subterranean chambers. And I like that idea because there are absolutely chambers embedded within this Pyramid Mountain structure. And until they come out here and either do further excavation of the site or non-invasive ground penetrating radar scanning, you could actually remove some of the mystery surrounding this thing and actually get to some answers. And just again, looking at this thing, there was absolutely, in my opinion, it definitely appears like there would have been pipes or something inlaid in here. I do like the idea of vats or containers here where you can mix different components into your fluid solution. Again, the term that I used during our previous Japan expedition, bizarre megaliths, absolutely applies to this thing.
All right, everyone, that is it for today's video. This was Sunday Site Visit 120, the pyramid and stonework at the Sakafune Ishi complex in Japan. I really hope you enjoyed today's video, and in the next episode in the series, the function of Pyramid Coromanta. This is an episode you do not want to miss, so if you haven't already, please subscribe to The Land of Chem here on YouTube if you're interested in the technology of a lost civilization utilizing physics and chemistry and the function of the Egyptian pyramids and other ancient structures from around the world. Remember to click that little notification bell so you don't miss out on new episodes. Like, comment, share, and stay tuned. If you want to help support the channel and get access to exclusive research content, check out the members-only channel and thelandofchem.com if you want to pick up a copy of the book or grab some merch. Links in the video description below. If you want to follow me on Instagram or on X, my handle is @thelandofchem. Also, don't forget, after you finish watching this video, please go subscribe to our 3 other channels. My wife Alexa's channel, Archeo Alchemy, our mutual travel, adventure, and culinary experience channel, Let's Go with Lex and G, and the best channel on YouTube, Egyptian Trash Cats. For all you cat lovers out there, ladies and gentlemen, as always, thank you all so much for the support. I think that's it for today's episode, so I will see you. Yeah, she's been sitting here the whole time. Next time.
Yo, are you still watching this? Please subscribe to The Land of Chem here on YouTube and click that little notification button. New videos coming out every single week. And check out this other episode. Come on, do it. Do it now.